everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on the path to academic and career success. My name is Marissa Murrigan-Reza, and I'm a career coach. I currently work full-time as a chief of staff at an early-stage healthcare company that focuses on prenatal care. My background is in public health, and I have my MBA in management and entrepreneurship. I have experience in managing teams and people, and I really love to coach people on their educational and professional goals by creating actionable plans to achieve those goals. I'm very excited to be with you all today, so let's get started. You are constantly developing new knowledge of yourself, an understanding of the world around you, and gaining fundamental understanding of academics and co-curricular content that can be applied to your path after AVU. An awareness of your interests, preferences, strengths, and values can drive your decision-making for the future. Why is it that some learners do not achieve their educational goals even when they have the potential? Whether you need help forming an academic plan or choosing a career path, our integrated approach provides individual support that helps you flourish in your studies while helping you prepare for a career that will bring you joy and satisfaction. We understand that all students look for the path to career and academic success, and that is why we are presenting this webinar to you. In this recorded webinar, we will go over the following. The first is recognizing your SWOT. The second is navigating university resources. And the third is creating effective strategies. One of the most common competitive analysis frameworks is the SWOT analysis. SWOT, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, helps highlight and uncover opportunities that are not always immediately apparent. This information is useful when preparing for interview questions about strengths and weaknesses and identifying areas that might otherwise reduce the chances of getting a job. To conduct a personal SWOT analysis, get a pen and paper and answer the questions below. After you finish, highlight some of your greatest strengths and prominent weaknesses and make a plan of action based on the information. Step 1, strengths. The first step of the SWOT analysis is to highlight every relevant strength that you have. These can include experience, education, skills, or circumstances that make you a valuable candidate. Try to focus on assets that set you apart from your competitors. For example, if you are a graphic designer, proficiency in design software will not set you apart from others. So you should choose a unique skill or ability that will help you stand out. Some questions that you can ask yourself are, what are you an expert at? What is your favorite skill? What skill do you get the most compliments about? What abilities come easy to you? Which skill are you most proud of? What areas do you notice others are lacking in? Do you have any unique background to offer? Step 2, weaknesses. Once you identify your strengths, it's important to begin highlighting your weaknesses. Though this exercise can be a challenge, do your best to be honest about areas that could use improvement. Acknowledging your shortcomings will help you prepare to answer questions about them and make a plan to develop these areas. Some questions you can ask yourself to help identify your weaknesses are, what area has held you back in the past? What is your least favorite work-related task? Do you have any education gaps? Which areas do you get negative feedback? Do you have any bad habits that are present at work? What scares you most about your job? The third step is opportunities. Like your strengths, opportunities set you apart from competitors. These assets can be network access, available technology, or any other advantage that you can use. If you are having a hard time coming up with opportunities, look at your strengths list and identify areas that you could further develop. Some questions to help you identify your opportunities are, do any of your skills lead to opportunities? Can you get trained in any missing skills? Do you have a strong network of contacts? Is there any upcoming tech that you could be trained in? Are there any areas where you see others failing? The last step, step 4, is threats. Threats are aspects of your career, experience, or qualifications that might hurt your chances of landing a job. These can include technology that you don't have experience with, bad references, or questionable work history. Identifying these threats is crucial in the interview preparation process. For each threat, you should brainstorm some solutions. Questions you can ask yourself are, is your industry shrinking or growing? Does emerging technology threaten your job? Could any of your weaknesses lead to threats? Could new applicants be more qualified? This is a great exercise our students can use to help map out their future career paths. The key importance of SWOT analysis for a student is to help achieve a clear picture of where we stand. Besides, the analysis also helps students to identify areas of improvement and goal setting. Doing a SWOT analysis for oneself is not an easy task, and it requires a lot of thought. But once it's completed, it results in great rewards. Most students tend to focus and spend a lot of time talking about their weaknesses or challenges. Educationists, however, differ, noting that it will be of more benefit if instead they focus more on their strengths. This helps learners succeed in their academic life. A new model has been adopted in academia and business world known as Sandwich, which is meant to help learners succeed by focusing on their strengths only. The Sandwich feedback technique is a popular 3-step procedure to help managers who are ill at ease with providing corrective feedback. The Sandwich feedback method consists of praise, followed by corrective feedback, followed by more praise. In other words, the Sandwich feedback method involves discussing corrective feedback that is sandwiched between 2 layers of praise. The benefits of this technique are twofold. First, it softens the impact of the criticism or corrective feedback. And second, given that a manager is probably more comfortable with praising the employee, the manager finds it easier to discuss problems with the employee's behavior if that discussion begins and ends with praising the employee. When we focus on developing our strengths, we grow faster than when trying to improve our weaknesses. Plus, people who use their strengths are happier, less stressed, and more confident. So if you're finding that you're consistently failing or falling short on the goals you've set for yourself, it may be time to consider trying to improve where you're already strong, rather than focusing your efforts on getting better in the areas where you're weak. When someone says focus on your strengths, it's easy to read that as just do what you're good at and you won't need to improve. But that's what we call a fixed mindset, believing that your talents are innate gifts. That's opposed to a growth mindset, which is believing that your talents and skills can be developed. Both strengths and weaknesses can be improved, and people with a growth mindset tend to achieve more than those with a fixed mindset because they put more energy into learning. In other words, people who believe they can improve put more effort into improving, which in turn helps them to improve. So to grow professionally and personally, it's not enough to identify your strengths and use them. You also need to believe that those strengths can be improved, and focusing on strengths rather than weaknesses will lead to more opportunities faster. So how can you find your strengths? The first step in growing your strengths is identifying them, and that can be a tricky task. Weaknesses are more obvious. You're asked to give a speech, but you feel miserable with anxiety anticipating it. Or you're asked to document a process, but you always did poorly in your writing classes in school, so the blank page mocks you. Weaknesses often carry vivid reminders of some past suffering. Exercising your strengths, on the other hand, tends to feel more like moving through day-to-day life. That can make it hard to identify what it is you're really good at. If you're not sure what your strengths are, Here are some key ways to identify them. Pay attention. Pay attention may seem like generic advice, but we sometimes ignore signs of our strengths because we're so invested in improving our weaknesses. You can also think about how different activities make you feel. In his book, Go Put Your Strengths to Work, Marcus Buckingham says we often identify our strengths and weaknesses in the wrong way. We think of strengths as things we're good at and weaknesses as things we're bad at. But a better way to think of strengths and weaknesses, Buckingham argues, is to figure out what energizes us. Strengths make us feel strong, and weaknesses make us feel weak. So he says one way to identify your strengths is to think about how activities make you feel. In his book, Buckingham gives the example of a man who, as a young boy, showed incredible talent as a swimmer. His mother noticed his talent and got him on the swim team. He was on the swim team for many years and won lots of awards, but he absolutely hated it. So in high school, he quit the swim team and started pursuing something that energized him instead, which was making music. It's definitely possible to be good at something you hate doing, but that's not the type of strength you necessarily want to improve. The third way is to crowdsource it. It may be hard to see your own strengths, but the people in your life probably see them quite clearly. Ask your friends, family members, a boss, coworkers, or a mentor to tell you what they think your strengths are. Some people may be uncomfortable responding, and that is okay. But others may respond in a way that's unhelpful. My mom says I'm good at everything. That's okay too. The goal is to identify things that you wouldn't have thought of on your own, or to find patterns. Then consider the responses. Do any of the strengths people reported make you feel excited and energized when you exercise them? If so, those may be the strengths you want to grow. The last is to create a list of your accomplishments. In the Introvert's Complete Career Guide, Jane Finkel recommends an exercise where you think of your proudest accomplishments to identify your interests, skills, and values. But the exercise is also a way to identify your strengths. Think back over all of the accomplishments you're proud of. It could be something like getting a promotion, getting a book published, or even teaching yourself how to change the alternator in your car. Think about accomplishments that energized you. They don't necessarily have to be things you would include on a resume. And then try to narrow your list down to only 3. So after you've identified your strengths, the next step is to create a plan for how you'll grow them. If the strengths you found were things you haven't focused on before, but uncovered through the exercises above, your first step may be as simple as starting to learn more about your newfound strength. You can start with something simple, like taking a class or reading online tutorials. Then you can move forward from there. It's more difficult to figure out how to grow your strengths when you've been actively using them for a while. You may feel like you're already proficient and there's no more room for growth. But always remember that there is always room to grow. Here are some ideas to consider. Think about constructive criticism you have received. You can be really good at something without being an expert in every part of it. For example, my greatest strength is writing, but for a long time, I received the same criticism from my editors. Your writing is excellent, but it's a little too formal. If you can't think of where you need to improve on your own, ask the people you work with for feedback. People are usually more open to providing constructive criticism when they know you're looking for ways to improve. The next is to develop a related skill. If you're truly an expert at what you do, another option is to develop related skills. For example, if you're an excellent blogger, you could turn your attention to learning related fields like SEO, videography, or graphic design. If you're a talented developer, you could learn project management to build your leadership skills. Learn something that will make you better at your core strength, even if that secondary skill never becomes a main area of focus for you. When developing complementary skills, it also helps to consider your long-term goals. What skills will you need to get the job you want to have 5 years from now? One way to figure this out is to browse the LinkedIn profiles of people who have jobs you'd like to have in the future. See what skills they have that you don't. You might even consider reaching out to those people to talk with you about the skills that they thought were the most helpful in growing their careers. The next is to use your strengths. In Go Put Your Strengths to Work book that was written by Buckingham, he notes that only 17% of people say that they spend most of their time at work playing to their strengths. While you might not be able to go to your boss and create your own role that's solely focused on your strengths, Buckingham suggests the following. Push the people at work towards your strengths and away from your weaknesses. Push for more training around your strengths. Push for inclusion on teams or projects that could really use your strengths. Push to spend time with colleagues who share one of your strengths and are even more adept than you at applying it. At the beginning of every week, he says, think about ways you can use your strengths a little more than you did the previous week. By doing so, you can grow the percentage of time you spend on your strengths at work gradually over time. After all, the more you use your strengths at work, the more people will recognize you for those strengths. And they may even start coming to you anytime there's a need for someone with your unique skill set. The last is to teach someone else. There's a concept known as the protege effect. People learn the material better when they have to teach what they've learned to others. People who expect to have to explain what they've learned do a better job of organizing their knowledge and recalling it. Plus, as they teach, they identify knots and gaps in their own thinking. Consider hiring an intern or taking on a mentee. By walking someone inexperienced through something you know inside and out, you may uncover things you didn't know as well as you thought you did, things that you could improve upon, or new ways to do things you thought you perfected long ago. Weaknesses must not be looked at with resentment. Recognizing your weaknesses is the first step towards turning them into strengths. So let's discuss a few of the most common weaknesses found in students that hinder their academic growth. The first is procrastination. Procrastination plagues every student's academic career. Purposely delaying your work till the last minute is called procrastination. It adds to your burden and makes you so stressed out that you fail to carry out your tasks properly. Here are some helpful tips to help you overcome procrastination. Do your homework as soon as you get it. Make a schedule and plan your activities. Always prioritize what's most important. Make sure to finish all of your scheduled tasks for the day. And lastly, turn off your cell phone and remove all of the distractions. The second is lack of focus. If you have a short attention span, then it may become difficult for you to focus on the task at hand. Lack of focus can make you fall behind your peers. However, as soon as you have recognized this weakness, you can work towards strengthening it. Here are some tips to help enhance your focus. Remove any kind of distraction. Divide your study material into shorter segments. Make time for exercise. And always make sure your diet contains good fats. The third is fear of failure. Students these days have the burden of parents' expectations on top of their crushing academic success and stress. Hence, students fear failure and letting their parents down. Ironically, this fear of failure leads them to underperform in their studies. Anxiety and stress clouds their minds, which slows down their learning process and halts their growth. Here are a few suggestions to help overcome that fear. Communicate effectively. Think positively. Take breaks. And always remember that failure does not define you as a person. The fourth is lack of enthusiasm. Lack of enthusiasm is often the culprit behind your low grades. It may also be the reason behind your lack of focus. Students usually lack enthusiasm in their not so favorite subjects. Fortunately, this is not as big of a problem as it seems to be. You can overcome this regard by trying to develop interest in the subject by making it entertaining. Reward yourself for completing tasks and always motivate yourself to do better. The last is disorganization. Disorganization can make your work seem more difficult than it is in reality. Disorganization may cause you to procrastinate even more. Hence, you must organize your tasks and plan your activities for the day. Here are some helpful ways to be more organized. Make a study plan. Make lists. Note your homework in your calendar. Make a timetable and stick to it. And try doing the difficult work first. It's important to acknowledge that our weaknesses make us human, but we can overcome those weaknesses by recognizing them and finding solutions. There are many excellent tips for successful students, but the 10 tips are key for academic success. The first is always be prepared for class. Complete all of your homework assignments before the end of the week. The next is don't be afraid to ask questions. If you have a question, it is likely that your other classmates do too. The third is practice time management. Some students choose to purchase a planner or an agenda to help keep track of important deadlines. You could also use the calendar feature of your smartphone or tablet. Always save your draft in multiple places. It's great to save your work to a computer or quick drive, but you can also email that draft to yourself or save it online using Google Drive. Understand the importance of the syllabus and refer back to it throughout the semester. The syllabus is a legally binding document between yourself and the instructor. Make sure you're aware of specific course policies and expectations. Do not let your social life take priority over your academic life. Social activities are very important and can add great enrichment to your college experience. However, remember that you are ultimately here to earn that degree. Missing a social event will not have the same consequences as missing an essay deadline. Get to know your professor. Maintaining good communication with your instructor is critical. Don't feel intimidated by them, and feel free to message them if you have any questions or concerns. Know that embracing help from peer tutoring is about improving your skills and making you a successful student. Organizing peer tutoring sessions with your cohort does not mean that you are an inferior student. On the contrary, it shows that you are dedicated to your academic success and you want your work to be the best it can possibly be. Student success encompasses both educational and early career performance. Educational performance metrics include college grades, cumulative GPA, program persistence, degree attainment, and student retention. Relative to early career performance, student success is descriptive of early income and occupational prestige. However, these performance-based success metrics focus on what can be observed externally. The concept of student success is much broader at the individual level in terms of one's own experiences and appraisals of success. The path to academic and career success is in the hand of our students. You get to decide what success means to you. You decide your SWOT, and you decide which strengths and opportunities to focus on. Keep a goal in mind and continue to work hard to achieve it. Lastly, don't forget that you can connect with AIES on social media, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and you can always reach out to us at any time. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today. I hope it was a great use of your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.